want to talk about something, though, that is serious. Today I want to talk about a war that the mainstream media is ignoring. From Boston to Zanzibar, there's a worldwide war on Christianity. Christians are being attacked around the world, but you won't hear much about it on the evening news because the answer's not convenient. It doesn't fit the narrative we have been told about radical Islam. The president tries to gloss over who's attacking and killing Christians. The media describes the killings as sectarian. But the truth is, a worldwide war on Christians is being waged by a fanatical element of Islam. Ever since 9/11, commentators have tried to avoid pointing fingers at Islam, which is somewhat fair. It is fair to point out that most Muslims are not violence against Christians, but it's not the whole truth. The whole truth is, and we shouldn't let political correctness stand in the way of this truth, the whole truth is that there is a minority of Muslims who condone killing of Christians, but unfortunately, that minority numbers in the tens of millions. Pew Research did a poll, and it indicated that 21% of Egyptians, 15% of Jordanians, many Jordanians are our friend, but 15%, 13% of Pakistani Muslims find terrorism acceptable, if not laudable. It's a minority to be sure, but if you add up the numbers in just 3 countries, it's over 40 million Muslims sympathize with violence against Christians. This shouldn't be understated. A Daily Telegraph survey indicated that there were 100,000 Muslims in Britain who fully supported the London subway bombings. 400,000 said they had some sympathy for these bombings. This is not a little problem, and it's not going away quickly. In Syria, there's an ancient Christian city called Maaloula, where they still speak Aramaic, the language that Jesus spoke. They've been Christians since the time of Christ. They're a small final outpost in the Middle East for Christians. The town was recently overrun by Islamic rebels. These Islamic rebels swarmed into the town and they demanded that everyone convert to Islam or die. Sarkis el-Zakam stood up and he answered them. And he said, I am a Christian, and if you want to kill me because I am, do so. These were Sarkis' last words. Sister Carmel of Damascus said of Sarkis, his death is true martyrdom, a death in odium fidei, or a death in the hatred of faith. Make no mistake, this is about your religion. Elsewhere in Syria, Islamic rebels have filmed beheadings of their captives. They've filmed themselves eating the heart of their enemy. 2 Christian bishops have been kidnapped and 1 priest was recently killed. These rebels are allies of the Islamic rebels that President Obama is now arming. We are now arming Islamic rebels who are allied with Al-Qaeda that attacked us on 9/11. Does that make any sense at all? American tax dollars should never be spent to prop up a war on Christianity. But that's what's happening now across the globe. As Christians, we should take a stand and fight against any of your tax dollars funding any persecution of Christians. In Zanzibar, a tiny little island off the coast of Africa, a priest was recently shot in the head on his way to church by 2 Muslim youths. A message by the Muslim Renewal said, we thank our young men trained in Somalia for killing the infidel. Many more will die. We will burn homes and churches. We have not finished. At Easter, be prepared for disaster. In Kenya, motorcycle assailants hurled bombs into a Christian church, injuring 15 people and breaking the legs of the pastor. In Indonesia, the world's most populous Muslim nation, 3 girls were beheaded on the way to their Christian school. Make no mistake, there is an element of radical jihad in this. In Guinea this year, a Muslim mob attacked and killed 95 Christians and injured 130. In Egypt, just recently, 82 churches were attacked. leaving hundreds dead and wounded. Earlier this year, I forced the Senate to vote to defund the Muslim Brotherhood, and every Democrat voted to continue sending your money to the Muslim Brotherhood. I can tell you one thing, though. As long as I'm in the Senate, I will fight against sending any money to the Muslim Brotherhood. In Cameroon recently, 2 Christians who had converted from Islam were murdered. In Iran, American pastor Saeed Abedini is detained indefinitely, facing physical and psychological torture. They asked him to renounce his faith, the same thing they asked Sarkis el-Zakhem before he was killed. I've introduced a resolution into the Senate that says, and calls for, and says we should do everything within our power, within our voice, from the White House, from the State Department, from our government, to release Saeed Abedini. And I will not rest until Pastor Abedini is freed. Across the globe, Christians are under attack, almost as if we lived in the Middle Ages or as if we lived under early pagan Roman rule. You remember the early Christian martyrs, our disciples, the disciples of Christ. It's almost as if that is happening again throughout the Middle East. This administration does nothing to stop it, and it can be argued that they are giving aid and comfort to those who tolerate these crimes. In Libya, the country we freed from oppression, the militias that apparently were guarding our ambassador have raided a Christian church, rounding up hundreds of Christians, accusing them of being missionaries, accusing them of having the crime of having a cross or a Bible. Many were tortured, and one Christian was recently killed by these same militias. In Pakistan last week, 75 Christians were killed, several hundred more killed in a bombing of a church. Asia Bibi is a Pakistani Christian. She sits on death row for blasphemy. She says it all began when she drew water from a Muslim well. As she was filling her bowl of water, a crowd formed and chanted, "Death, death to the Christian." She pleaded for her life. She was pelted with stones, punched in the face, and dragged through the streets. The local imam finally interceded to say, "If you don't want to die, you must convert to Islam." The crowd descended on her, beating her with sticks. Finally, the police stopped the attackers, only to arrest her. She has now been on death row for the crime of blasphemy. What I say is, until Asia Bibi is freed, not $1 of U.S. aid should go to Pakistan.